Hello, I'm Scott and welcome to the 5th video in our table modeling Maya tutorial. So far what we've done is we've spawned in a cube, we've beveled off all the edges on the cube, we've beveled the top and bottom edges, we've sorted out the n-gons on that, we spawned in a polytorus, we changed the base geometry on it to reduce the poly count down, make it more square for our needs, we've resized it, we've beveled the inside and outside edges on that, we've beveled off the corners, then we've combined the two objects together. We've deleted out the bottom faces on the table and we've used bridges and fill hole tools to gap fill all the areas of space in between, and then we've filled in the center of the torus as well. So we've kept everything in quads and tris. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be adding in our table legs, but before we do that we're going to reduce the size on this torus down a bit because it's a bit deep still. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to hold the space button down, we're going to hold left click on Maya, and we're going to go into front view. Now my reference table's in the way here, so I'm going to hit W and I'm going to move that out of the way. If you're ever wondering what the hotkeys I'm using are in these videos, you can double check by going to the description where all the hotkeys are listed, as well as their function and the scenario in which I'm using them. So for this, we're just going to go right click down, we're going to go into Vertex, we're going to hold left click down and drag a selection box out so that we only catch the bottom vertexes on our torus, like so. And then we're just going to drag this up a little bit, not too much, just to keep it slightly more out of view. We're going to hold space down again, we're going to hold left click on the Maya button in the center of the radial menu, and we're going to hover over perspective view and just let go. That's going to bring us back into our camera mode where we can move around freely. I'm going to hold right click now and I'm going to go into object mode, and we're just going to leave that as it is. Next we need to spawn in our table legs, so I'm going to hit poly primitive cube at the top left here. I'm going to bring this cube in. I'm now going to just change the geometry on this a little bit. So to do this, I'm going to change my view again. I'm going to hold space, I'm going to hold left click on Maya, I'm going to go into bottom view and let go. I'm going to turn on wireframe on shaded as well because it makes this a bit easier to see. So to do that, we go to the top of our modeling viewport, we've got this little tiny blue cube with white outlines. It'll highlight itself by saying wireframe on shaded. I'm just going to click that and it's going to show us all of the wireframe of the model. So I'm going to just use grid snap here by holding X, and while I've got W selected for my move tool, I'm going to hold X down and I'm going to snap to grid points along the way and up the way so that my table leg is going to sit just where I want it. Now it's a bit big still, so we're going to sort that. We're going to scale it a bit. So we're going to hit R and we're going to use the X and Z scale, which is this little flat square that sits between the two direction scales. Now if we use this and drag it in, it's going to scale our table leg in both directions. I'm just going to move this in a little bit. So I'm going to use the translate tools here. So we're going to see what this is going to do if we bring this to 2. That's the direction we want it to go. So we know it's between 2 and 3. So we'll try 2.5. Still not enough. We'll try 2.75. Just ever so slightly more. We'll try 2.85. And we'll just bring it down a little bit too. A better way to do this might actually be, if we zoom in really close, we can know our table legs on the center of this space here. If we get the two corner points on the table leg to match with the line of the geometry here. So that's splitting this corner right down the center, and we want our table leg to be centered. So as long as the top right and bottom left corner of the table sit roughly on this line of the geometry on the torus, we know that the table leg is centered. But it's facing the wrong way, so we're just going to go into the rotate and we're going to apply a 45-degree Y rotation to our leg, and now it's sitting a bit better. So we're just going to move this, we're going to put that back to 0, and we're just going to move it down a little bit again because it's a little high still when we've applied that rotation there. And now we're going to try that again. So we're going to do a 45-degree Y rotation, and that's looking a lot better for us. So we're going to zoom out, we're going to come into Maya, and we're going to come into perspective view again, and our table leg's way too low. So what we're going to do here is, we're going to change our pivot so that when we scale our leg down, our leg's going to scale based off of the top rather than off the center. So if we scale just now with R, it's going to scale from its center point in both directions, and we don't want that. We want it to scale straight down the way. So we're going to hit D, and that's going to open the pivot editor, and we're going to hold the V key down for point snap, and we're going to use the Y axis to just drag our pivot point and snap it to the top of our table leg, like so. If we let go of V and then we just tap D again now, it's going to bring us back into editing just the mesh. So if we hit D, we can now move this object to the top of here and snap it exactly to the base of the torus. So if we hold V for point snap again, and we just hover over a vertex on the torus, it's going to snap that table leg right into place where we want it. If we scale it now with R, it's going to scale off of the pivot point, so it's going to scale straight down rather than scaling up through the table as well. So if we get that roughly where we need it, we can now use the grid snap to snap this exactly to the base of the world. So if we hold right click and we hover over vertex and we select all the vertexes on the base of our table leg, we can press W for move now and remove the scale tool, and if we hold X and we just drag the Y axis down a little bit, that's going to snap perfectly to the grid in the viewport, which means that the table's sitting on the 0 point in the world, which is what we want for export later as well. Now, we have to delete the unnecessary face off of the top of our table leg. So we're going to hold right click and we're going to go into object mode. So now the only object we want to select is the leg itself, and we want to use our isolate select, which is this little blue square with the little cursor icon at the top of the viewport. We're just going to hit that. We're going to press Q to get rid of the move tool here. We're going to hold right click and we're going to go into face select, and we're just going to click on that top face and delete it, because we don't actually need that anymore. Now that we've done that, we're going to hold right click again and we're going to come back into object mode and we're going to remove our isolate selection. Now our table leg's still looking a bit chunky, so we're going to apply a quick bevel to that as well. We're going to click the bevel tool here, which is this orange cube with the shaved off corners in white, and it's applied way too big a bevel for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop that from 0.5 to 0.25, and that's looking a lot better already. So we're going to keep that as it is, and we're just going to click back on our cursor and select our table leg again, and we just want to add a little bit of detail to the top here where it meets. So because we've deleted off that top face, we can't bevel it, but what we can do is we can add an edge loop and we can scale in the top edges slightly. So we're going to use the multi-cut tool again for this, which is these three orange lines with a little knife. So if we click on the multi-cut tool, we don't have to draw all the points right the way around. If we hold control when we're using the multi-cut tool, it will cut an entire edge into the object based on the direction that we're selecting. So while we're on the side here, it's going to put it laterally around the object. If we come to the top, it's going to run it vertically around the object, but we want the lateral. So we're going to get this as close to the top as we can, and we're just going to click. And we're going to move that edge up ever so slightly as well. So we're going to zoom in a little. We're going to hold right click down and go to edge select. We're going to double click that edge, and we're going to press W for move, and we're just going to drag it up a little bit more. Now we've done that, we're going to do the same on the top, where we double click and we make sure that all the top edges are selected, and we're going to tap R to scale, and we want to scale on the X and the Z axis at the same time by using this little square here, and we just want to bring it in ever so slightly like so. Now that we've done that, we're just going to hold right click and we're going to go into object mode. Now we want our table legs to appear in the same position on each corner. So rather than building 4 individual table legs and laying them out, we're going to click on one, we're going to duplicate it. So now that we're in the duplicated leg, we're going to go to the translate here, and if we tap on the X and we place a minus value on our X and hit enter, it's going to move our table leg to the exact other side. As long as our table is centered in the middle of the viewport like so, so if I go into space, I hold left click on Maya and I go to bottom view, the table is perfectly centered on our grid, which means that when we duplicate and we apply minus values or we delete minus values from these legs or from any object, it's going to perfectly jump to the other side of the axis. So if we do the same again, if we select our original table leg and we use Control D, and this time we apply a minus to the Z, it's going to jump that leg straight underneath like so. So now we want to just do the same again with this one where it's got the minus z. We're going to duplicate that, and we're also going to give it a minus x, and that's going to jump it straight into place. So if we hold space, we hold left click on Maya, and we go to perspective view, our four legs are now perfectly equidistant. They're all exactly where they need to be on the object, and the only thing left for us to do here is to select all the object parts. We go to mesh, and we're just going to hit combine. Now, I'm not going to combine the geometry on the legs with the torus because it's going to put my poly count quite high, merging 8 faces on the top of the table leg with the faces on the torus each point around. And we don't need to do it because this object's not going to animate, it's not going to move, it's not going to do anything other than sit in the game world. So just combining and leaving them socketed like so is fine. So what we've done now is we've completed the modelling process. So in the next video we're going to start going over the UV mapping process, and we're going to apply a new material checker square so that we can ensure our texture density remains the same, and then we'll start using some different UV tools to start blocking out big areas of this object into our UV map. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.